All right. About to get this going. There we are.
All right, we made it work, man.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah, awesome. And I agree with you on the instant three-quarter, although I'm more comfortable with the 2.5.
2.5 is the way to go.
Yeah.
The weekly scrap number 11, special guest right here, Cort Smith, training philosophy. As always, I'm going to kick it off with some quick things to all the viewers. If you have questions, comments, please give them to us. If you agree or disagree with anything, please let us know. Hold on, sorry. And yeah, anything. If you have questions while you're here live, hit us with the questions. I know Cort would love to answer them. And from there, Cort, I want you to introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Cort Smith. I work for Oklahoma City Fire Department, and I'm also the president of Mid-America Fools, Oklahoma City Metro chapter. Previously, I worked as an engine company operator at Station 8, and now I'm a training officer with our training division. Love to train, love to do anything engine company. That's kind of my wheelhouse. And thanks for having me on, man. I'm happy to be here.
You are officially the first guest of Firehouse Vigilance Weekly Scrap. So
awesome, man.
That's the huge honor for you. But no, I'm super pumped to have you on. Super pumped to pick your brain about training. I met you the first time at spring break your training. I think first time in person. We talked a lot online. And
yeah, that was one of our Fools training events. We do that every year. And yeah, I remember coming out. You were taking pictures and stuff, and that was when we first talked. And that was a pretty good time, man. It was a good training out there.
No, you guys, I had people coming up from Texas, people coming from out of state. It was a real good time. I went and looked one of these up, and it is all views expressed in this recording do not represent the opinions of any entity whatsoever other than the people that are on here right now. They don't represent our departments. So
yeah, I'm very glad you said that. Thank you.
I got you covered. If something offends you, you are not allowed to blame anybody except Corley Moore and Cort Smith. So
yeah,
there we go. That's our standard disclaimer. Back to the notes. Got my disclaimer out of the way. Established. Yep. So there you go. How long have you been in the Mid-America Fools?
I've been in the Fools, I think, probably 6 years, something like that. And I've been on the job about 11 years now. And Fools, man, I've been the chapter president for about 2 years now, and we're just like every Fools chapter, we're just all about training and trying to help all the brothers out there, brothers and sisters, any way we can.
Definitely a first here in the Metro. The question about training. Now you are just moved into training. What's your?
Yeah, I just went over there about a month ago. They had a spot open up, and so I applied and got accepted. I've previously, the last few years, I've been the field training officer for a few rookie classes. And the way that works, we just go down there off the rigs for about 4 months and help out the rookie class. So now the opportunity opened up. We're going to have several rookie classes coming up. So I was like, well, I'll just, dive right in and just be a full-time training guy for a couple of years anyway.
Just head first, a couple of years?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
How big this class is going to be? Do you have any idea yet?
Our next one will be around 50, probably. We tend to average 40 to 50 per class.
So talk about your training philosophy, especially with large classes like that.
With the recruits, so I follow this book called Talent Code. That had a huge impact on how me and others look at training, especially when it comes to recruits. So when it comes to recruit class, we go in 3 phases. I won't get too deep into it, but essentially the 3 phases are fear, pain, and pride. And the fear phase is like the first couple of weeks, and we kind of harken back to Marine Corps. Day one, I wasn't in the Marines, but I draw a lot of inspiration from those guys. But
sure.
It's just a lot of it's really intense. We try to get them scared. The more scared they are, the more they'll accept what we're trying to teach them. And it just seems to work. It's worked for the Marines for a couple hundred years now, so it works pretty well for us. And then we move into the fear phase, and I'm sorry, the pain phase, which is it's not necessarily pain, but what we're doing is we spend a tremendous amount of time on the drill field, and every day we're trying to push them to their limits. And at the end of each day, I ask them, I'll say, who reached their limit today? And they'll raise their hands like, well, okay, good. That was your limit. Tomorrow you'll be stronger. And then the pride phase, like the last month, we're just building them back up. You know, we're getting them full of pride, head full of steam, ready to go out and conquer out on the rigs. And that's our overall philosophy. And then going back to the talent code, when it comes to teaching tasks like throwing ladders, pulling lines, forcing doors, what have you, we'll take any task like I will say throwing a ladder, for example, a 24-foot ladder. The drill might be, you know, you pull the ladder off the rig, run it out, and throw it and set it against the building. But we'll take that and we'll break it into its simplest elements. We call them chunks. Like in the book, he talks about chunking. So that would be actually 5 different drills. So first they'll practice shouldering the ladder, pulling it off the rig and shouldering it, getting it balanced and getting the muscle memory to see what that feels like. Then from there, the next drill will be shoulder it and then walk it, 50 feet, walk it back, keep doing that till they feel comfortable. And then next one, they'll walk it out, then they'll stick it in the ground, stab it, get that down. Next, we'll stick it, raise it straight up in the air, bring it back down. Then the last time, they'll take it out, stick it, raise it, and set it at a target. Now, each one of those different elements, they may do it, 50 times, as long as many times it takes to get it right.
Sure.
But it's kind of a chain. We're building a chain, so every time we're always adding links to the chain.
So on the chunking, is it, if you like, so the ladder example, do you move from one chunk to the next, master one, and then move on, or is it all the chunks at once?
No. We master one, and then you move on. The idea is, I can't remember who first said it, but we don't practice till we get it right. We practice till we can't get it wrong. Okay. So every time they master a chunk, then they'll move on to the next chunk. And we do it with everything, with hand lines, forcing doors, like I said. Every single thing, we'll break it down. We'll parse it down to its simplest elements, and we'll train on each different element. And a lot of people have heard the 10,000 hours to mastery theory.
Right.
Yeah, that was put out a while back, and it's good and it tends to work. However, that was based on kind of backwards math. So the guy that put that out, he looked at a lot of experts in different fields, and then he just did the math and figured, well, they must have spent 10,000 hours over their life mastering this particular skill. Well, with that book in mind, and the thought of what's called deep practice, it's not so much how many hours you spend practicing, it's how you practice. So you can actually master a skill in a much shorter amount of time if you're breaking it down to its simplest elements and mastering each one of those elements.
Mastering each chunk along the way.
Yes.
I want to go back and ask you a question about the fear, pain, and pride. Okay. What kind of I don't want to say washout, but how is the effect on the young recruits as far as the instilling the fear? How many of them give up, throw their hands up, walk away? What's the rates basically?
Maybe one out of each class.
Wow.
We'll out. What tends to happen is, people don't apply to get on the job if they just have like a passing interest in being a firefighter. They really want to be firefighters. The point there is, well, first we're trying to weed out anybody that's there for the wrong reasons. If someone's there because they want some benefits or they want to, whatever, steady pay or whatever, nobody's going to put up with that kind of treatment for however long a week.
Right.
They'll say, this is stupid, I'm out. But that rarely happens. What ends up happening is, they rise to the challenge. And the trick to it, what we always have to remember and keep in mind is it's never personal. We never get personal. We demand perfection in that first couple of weeks, but we know full well we're not going to get it.
Right.
So we're just there to really get up their ass anytime they make any slight little mistake, just so that it teaches them they can't get away with anything, but eventually they start to realize whatever whatever I think is, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to listen to what these guys tell me and do what they tell me.
Okay.
And then they just start to buy in, and then once we get them there, it sounds really mean, and I guess it kind of is, but
effective is one thing, and a high standard is you can't really do it and be nice.
Yeah, and like I said, I watch, those YouTube videos like Marine Corps Day One. I watch those videos all the time, and I draw inspiration from them because those guys, they have got it down to a science, and everything they do is for a reason. And we try to approach it in the same way. We're really aggressive and really hardcore, but everything is for a reason. And then once we move into the pain phase, there's like a very visible transition for even the training cadre. We've got a great, awesome training staff, guys like Justin Lorenzen, Dane Yaw, Wiley Gabehart, all Fools members in our chapter. You see a transition in there where we're not really yelling so much, where you kind of become sort of like player coaches. When they're on the drill field, if they're bunked out, we're bunked out with them. We're doing the drills with them. Yeah, we demonstrate every single thing. Everything they do on the drill ground, they see us do it first. So it's really builds that team cohesiveness. It makes them feel like they're really part of something. And we're constantly, we motivate them all the time. We're always telling them, this is the best, best department in the country. You guys are going to be the best young firefighters in the country. And that should be the same for any department,
Right.
Like if I ask you, what's the best department in the world, everyone's answer should be the same.
Oh yeah, I work there. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love the respect, the pride, all of that. I was next question I had for you was on the young generation. Everybody's griped about the millennials for quite a while, but hey, they're grown up now. We're getting the Zoomers, the iGen, whatever you want to call them. What's your take on them so far?
Yeah, Gen Z, whatever, give it a name. To me, it's irrelevant. I really don't care what generation they come from. And honestly, we get recruits of all ages from 18 up to 40. And so to me, it doesn't really matter. And I know everybody gripes about millennials and Gen Z and all that stuff. And I actually read an article by a chief. I can't remember where he's from, but he was talking about how the fire service, we may have to change our approach or how we do business to mold, help bring in these millennials and what have you. And I wholesale disagree with that. If we get a bunch of Generation Z or whatever come in there, if they have these kind of traits, we get that out of them, then that's really another big part of that first 2 weeks is I guess the main complaint about the newer generations, the younger generations, they just don't know how to work, or they have to be constantly.
Sure. I've heard that.
Yeah, they need constant affirmation or whatever. If that's true, well, so be it. But that's not how we're going to do business. The first couple of weeks, they learn pretty quickly. That just gets scared out of them. So we kind of beat the millennial or Gen Z out of them. And I always look at it like, I'll tell our command staff, give us 50 wads of Play-Doh, we'll make firefighters out of them. And that's always our approach,
No, I like that. And I've always found it to be true, at least in my department, but always true, generally speaking, that firefighters are just I hate to say, I'm kind of biased, a better breed of people. So even our millennials and our Gen Zers and everything are just like a step above what the world has to deal with. And I think that's just our profession attracts a better, I don't know a word to say for it, but yeah.
Well, no, you're right. It's not just what our profession attracts, but it's also what our profession demands out of our people. If you're gonna be a good firefighter, there's certain things you have to do, regardless of what generation you claim to belong to. And along those lines, we point out to the recruits, our department, any department, we don't just encourage diversity. We celebrate diversity. We want diversity. But that said, the first time we ever fire alarm our recruits, they run.
Uh-oh.
Look around you and what you see, and they'll look around. I'll tell you what I see is I see firefighters. That's all I see. It's firefighters. I don't care. I don't see black, white, Christian, Muslim, gay, straight, whatever. I don't care. All I see is firefighters. So we get in that mindset of when we're wearing the uniform, that's what we identify as. We are firefighters. And whatever you identify as in the real world, the outside world, civilian world, that's your business. I respect it, and I'm going to celebrate it and embrace it. But when we're on the job, we're firefighters first and foremost.
First and foremost, I love that. Awesome. I'm trying to think of anything other questions I really burning to ask you. Short and sweet. You've got a FSIO, pretty big. You're talking on training coming up, aren't you?
Yeah, next week, Thursday, the FSIO conference. It's going to be Edmond, Oklahoma Training Center. I'm giving a talk on pretty much this stuff, training methodologies, and going a little more in depth with it. And then Saturday of the conference, Mid-America Fools is doing all the hands-on training for the conference. We'll be doing more of like a train the trainer, because everybody there is an instructor. Okay. So we'll be teaching them our thoughts, our methods for instructing firefighters.
Now, is that open to the public? Still able to sign up for it?
I think there are still spots available. You can go to fsio.org, and there's whatever, click on a link in there and you can sign up. All
right. Every scrap I try to, I haven't done it every time, but I try to review a book that firefighters should read. You're the first guest. You get to do the guest review of a book. This is the one you chose, so it's all you. Tell us about it.
Yeah. The Talent Code, that has been the most valuable book I've ever read on training. It totally changed my approach. And like I said, in there, he talks about chunking, taking a task and breaking it down to its simplest elements and practicing it in chunks. And in it, he identifies these places around the world. He mostly talks about athletes, but he'll talk about certain cities, like they produce the best soccer players in the world, and certain schools, certain cities will produce tennis players or golfers or whatever. And he goes really in depth into what they do there. And it's a cool thing, man, because you might have, these soccer players go and they play all over the world, but everybody knows that they all came from this one place. What? And he refers to them as talent hotbeds. And that really resonated with me. When I read it, I was like, man, I want Oklahoma City to be a talent hotbed. And like I said, our training staff is top notch, man. We're all, like, everybody on that staff is really awesome, and they're really fired up, and we've really embraced the principles in that book. And we've been enjoying some success from it. So I would highly recommend that to anybody in fire service training.
Awesome. I haven't read Talent Code, but now that you've recommended it, I will read it. I've read his other one, the Culture Code, and I really enjoyed it. And it's Daniel Coyle is who writes it. So there you guys go. Give it a good look. And so I look forward to reading it. And other than that, you got FSIO conference, we covered that. You reviewed the book. We talked about training. Brother, I really do appreciate you coming on here and being my first guest. I've got a little echo, but other than that, not too bad of a technological standpoint. So thank you for being Firehouse Vigilance Weekly Scrap first guest.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it, man. I hope to be on again sometime.
Hey, I count on it. As long as you're willing, I will bring you back. And, thank you guys all for coming and watching. I hope the tone stays silent for you. Unless it's burning, everybody stay safe out there.